Hello everyone, this is Edgar Garcia. You're watching Fresh News. Please subscribe to my channel on Fresh News on YouTube and press like on Facebook. You're going to have to excuse the music outside. My neighbor is playing it. You know, it's outside. I think there's a party going on a Monday. Okay, this is what quarantine does to people. But anyways, I wanted to talk today about something that I think is very important, and I think many people need to see this and realize this is the thing as how to study history in context. The problem is, like for example, I think right now what's happening in America is the fact that we are not looking at the context of things, and this is the reason why many American kids, many young American kids, Zoomers and millennials, have this really bad perception of what America is. Why? Well, America had black slaves. America, had war with Native Americans, and what that caused, it cost millions of people's lives, and it also caused many millions of people that live miserable. Yes, America has redeemed itself, but we do have a past, and we can't run from it. It's there. But the thing is that when you have to see history in context, it's very important to look at history in context. Why is that? When you look at history in context, you have to ask yourself this question: what was happening during that time? Okay, while America had slaves, what was happening in the world? Did other countries had slaves? Was America the only country that had slaves? That's one of the questions. Why did it happen? Okay, did it really happen because America was just evil, or did it happen because other people were involved? What had happened? Why did it? Who was involved? Who was doing this? I already said, that pretty much falls into what happened. But here's another thing about who was doing what side. Who among the Americans were opposed to it? Who was doing something against it? What about the black Americans? Who was taking what side? When it comes to the war with the Native Americans, who was doing what? I mean, the Native Americans, were they all together? Or were all the Europeans together? Did some of the Native Americans betray each other? Did some of the Europeans betray each other? Did some of the Europeans were against the wars against Native Americans? You have to kind of ask these questions. For some reason, we live in a society that the victors, it's with the exception of Germany, of course, the victors usually always are the oppressors. The victors of the history, we come to the conclusion now, people that are successful is a sign of being evil. That's the world we live in. The only people that could not do any harm according to people's mind are celebrities. They're idols. They're idols, and they're the only ones that deserve the will. But everybody else, most of the billionaires, we do live in a society that unfortunately we look at them as, bad people. But the thing is that we have to see the context of it. Now, how do we do research? Okay. What's the thing about research? What do we do? Okay, one of the things about research, me, in my opinion, that I see when I'm doing a story is that, okay, somebody says this about Donald Trump, the Washington Post. Okay, I look at the Washington Post, and the Washington Post, I begin to see where they got the story from. Most of the people, like Washington Post and New York Times, well, not the New York Times, but many of the times they come and they get it from other independent articles. Usually that lean towards left. I look at what happened and I look at the story. Whenever you need to see that, you need to see what the witnesses say. Okay. Now, one witness could be something, but is there anybody that can support that witness's testimony? So the witnesses, you have to see the date. It's very important to see the date. You have to see the name of the witness, not just the quote, not just the story. You have to see what company was involved. Was there any organization involved? Was there any company involved? The date and time. It's very important. This is something to do when you are doing your research and not just going based on conspiracy theory. Because the thing about when you see a conspiracy theory, you see that there's an event, and then you have your hypothesis and your explanation of why you think that happened. For example, somebody goes into there's an attack on a city, and during this attack, that another person just happened to be there in that same city. That's just speculation. That doesn't mean that that person was not involved, but it doesn't guarantee that the person was involved. So we need to realize and begin to see that, we can have our assumptions. That's normal. That's practically fine. But in order for us to do the research, we need to find out those things. We have to see the witnesses, we have to see the witnesses' testimony. We have to check the date. We have to check the time. We have to see different collaborations. You see, when you have two witnesses supporting their story, you'll be able to see that there is some truth to that, and a private investigator usually would do that. But the problem is, at the same time, you can't have the same two witnesses tell the same exact story, because then it will seem like they both collaborated to tell the same story. This is kind of like when people are, taking this test, and if they all have the same amount of right answers and the same amount of wrong answers, you begin to question it. This is the reason why I do believe that the Bible, when it comes to the Gospels, the Matthew, Mark, John, and Luke, are Gospels that they do not have identical writings, but they do support each other. They do support each other in one way. And this is the thing about the test, about witnesses, they have to support each other in one way. And you have to see the events. So that's one of the things when you're doing your research, And when it comes to, like, for example, also when it comes to the researchers, for some reason, many politicians have been accused of sexual assault. Now we have to understand, okay, when did these accusations came out? When did they came out? Why are they coming all of a sudden? What do they have to win, or what do they have to lose? And now sometimes we need to ask ourselves that question. Just not to dismiss the fact that there's not women that people that were victims of sexual assault do not come out years later, but we need to understand why is it happening now. And that's pretty much wanted to share my thoughts on that, how you do your research, and going back to the history, look at the history context. I mean, what was happening? You have to always see the reason why that was happening, and all these things happen, and sometimes we also have to notice that when you look at history, it's very important to understand what was happening during that time, because the problem is that many times we try to look at the history with modern day lenses, and that's not going to work. All right, so that just wanted to share that message with you. And once again, please subscribe to my channel, YouTube, Fresh News, and like my page, Fresh News. All right, you guys have a blessed day.